exciting adventure resort.
Oh, look, we're live.
We made it.
This time I would call the June meeting of the MSD of North Pleasant School Board to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Slagle, if you will read our vision, mission, core beliefs, and high priorities, please.
All right, our vision, we inspire all students to achieve their potential for learning in life in a safe and supportive environment. Our mission, we partner with our community to create a dynamic and innovative educational experience, empowering students to become educated, productive, and responsible citizens. Our core beliefs, we believe our community is vital to our educational success. Everyone is valued and treated with respect, and always telling the truth, an educational opportunity for all, student-centered programs, challenging and inspiring learning, and the pursuit of excellence through a strong sense of pride. In our high priorities, enhancing the student experience, investing in administrators and staff, fostering strong relationships among all, and maximizing our resources.
Thank you. And we have no patrons' concerns this evening. So we're on to minutes, claim docket, and consent items.
All right, so Mr. Oakley asked you to see. So now we're at the minutes for the previous meeting for May 13th of 2024. Our claim docket for the period of May 13th, 2024 to June 10th of 2024. The following resignations and retirements for the 23-24 school year. Clayton Reagan resigned as a science teacher and coached North Posey Junior High School at the end of the 23-24 school year. Jody Rankin, we're not going to let her retire. She's going to retire as deputy treasurer effective June 14th, 2024. Ms. Rankin indicated that she will be available to assist in training her replacement as needed. Ms. Rankin has served MSD North Posey County in various positions for 21 and a half years. The following leave day request. Shaylin Cates, FMLA, from approximately August 24th of 24 through January 5th of 25. Following hiring and transfer requests from the 24-25 school year. The following overnight and out-of-state field trips. Coach Shank and his coaches take 28 football players on a team building retreat June 14th through the 16th of 2024 to Sheltowee Trace Adventure Resort. All costs will be covered by ECA funds. Coach McCauley and her coaches to take 11 volleyball players to Louisville University for camp on July 10th through the 12th, 2024. Costs shall be covered by a combination of ECA funds and the athlete.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent items as presented.
Motion, need a second.
I'll second it.
Any discussion on the consent? Let's say congratulations to Mrs. Rankin.
Will there be, on June 14th, are you planning like something I should come and take a picture of, like a party or a cake, or is she gonna have her last day or anything?
The ladies did a dinner for her already last week.
Oh, okay, they did?
Mhm.
All right. And so she's just finished on the 14th.
She's gonna ride off into the sunset.
Thank you.
All the way to Maine.
You might be able to talk in a picture of our party.
Any
No,
other
that's without,
discussion on consent? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. New business. And we are to Mrs. Buto.
Awesome.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Hold on, I can do it a different way.
Okay.
I shared it with you. I didn't think about it being loved doing as that person instead of this person.
You're all pretty sweet. So sweet. know, there's like a weird glare on there.
That's terrible. Let me see it.
Board meeting.
Can you see it?
Maybe you might work on going ahead and getting permission then.
Can you see it?
Um,
No. I don't know where it is. He doesn't. Is that the? Oh, that one. Okay. Slowly but surely.
who were you looking
Me? Well, MSD is the North Police, that other page.
at? Oh. I need to share it.
I don't know if it's in there. It's,
Working.
You just need to stop on.
Yeah, you don't smell
I don't smell it, Mom.
Okay, so.
There we are.
Thank you. We added a behavior interventionist last year. It's hard for me to speak on what happened when she was there because I wasn't there, but it was heard through the grapevine that this was a very much needed position and it's been amazing. You can go to the next slide. So she works very well with our social worker who is employed through Youth First. She's at our school full time, and then also our counselor who is there part time but is at South Terrace with the other half of the day. So the three of them together are very tight knit and a wonderful resource for our kiddos. We'll go to the next one. So Alicia Slayton is our behavior interventionist. Some amazing things that she's done for our staff is she provides professional development, a lot of professional development for Tier 1 interventions, which are things that all teachers can implement in their classroom. She creates tools and resources for students. That could be behavior charts, social stories, anything that can help them get back on track and make good choices throughout the day. She provides support as needed for students, whether that's peer conflict, grief, maybe if kiddos are struggling with behavior. She reteaches appropriate behavior when responding to kiddos who are struggling. She teaches school-wide expectations. So the first 2 weeks of school, we hit it really hard. So she's in the cafeteria, she's constantly in the hallways. And then every quarter we revisit. So we have an assembly every quarter, usually after we return from a break. And it's something fun and engaging, but we also revisit school-wide expectations. Something that's been new for her is she's been collecting and analyzing data monthly. So she creates graphs. She collects the data, creates graphs that are easy for teachers, and then she provides that data at faculty meetings each month. And then this year we were doing an RTI, which is a team that really helps kiddos with like academic concerns. We're going to partner that with academics and behavior and create a team. So that's going to consist of our Title I teacher, our social worker, Alicia, our behavior interventionist, our counselor, myself, and then teachers, of course, when they have concerns with kiddos. So we're hoping that team will be able to really brainstorm and be on top of behaviors and create some strategies and skills that we can implement.
I'm going to pause you right there for a second to go back to that slide just so that we know what we're all kind of talking about. When we say Tier 1, if you think of a pyramid, so pyramid's heavier at the bottom, right? So Tier 1 is anything that we might do for all students in the building. So academics, behaviors, all of those things that we would do for every student in the building, no matter their needs, that's going to be a Tier 1 service, okay? Tier 2 then becomes when we see a need academically, behaviorally, in any of those realms, we might start to implement what we call Tier 2 services. And then Tier 3 would be your smallest population, but the highest need. And those would be in what we call Tier 3. So I just want to make sure we understood when we were talking about tiers, what that meant, and that multi-teams approach is connected to those tiers where we offer all the students certain levels of support. And then as they are identified as needier, then we might go into those tier 2 or tier 3.
Thank you.
What is RTI an acronym for?
So RTI is response to intervention. Yeah. So thank you, Michelle, because this goes into our tier. So when I became principal, there were 12 students that had some pretty significant behavior needs. So when we talk about tier 3 in the red, those are kiddos who were our top frequent flyers with the biggest behaviors. Tier 2, which is the 3 kiddos in yellow, those were kiddos who needed some additional support outside the classroom. So from the beginning of the year, we were able to reduce the amount of kiddos. So we had out of the 12 kids, 9 of them were able to bump down a tier. So the blue is good. Those are kiddos who are just in their classroom, regular behavior every day. So we have gone from 9 in the red kiddos down to 1, which is pretty significant throughout the year. That's pretty awesome. So the tier 2 kiddos, that's a tongue twister, are kiddos that are still receiving services. So that might be additional breaks outside the classroom, meeting with either our social worker, behavior interventionist, or counselor. So hopefully we will continue to make some great progress and you can get all those kids back to tier 1. So that data is pretty awesome from the beginning of the year to where we ended up at the end of the year.
So if a student has a one-on-one aid for behaviors, that doesn't automatically put them at a tier 3?
Well, so we bump if that increase or decrease their behavior, then
So they just have to show some improvement. There's no hard lines there between the tiers.
well, no, if we had a kiddo who had a one-on-one aid, they would still be at tier 3.
But we will not have kids with a one-on-one aid unless there's an IEP that calls for that.
That can be a behavior IEP.
It could be. It could be somebody with physical needs as well. So
And same way then with a different schedule. If they have a shorter schedule, then that would be.
that would have to be through a case conference meeting.
So yeah, and a lot of these that were reduced, we were able to evaluate kiddos and get them in the right placement or get them the right, whether it's an IEP or a 504. So
Are those kids still listed though? Like the kids that qualified throughout the year?
yeah, but
They're still in those numbers.
if we got them in the right placement and behavior decreased, then their tier decreased. Okay. There should be one more, one more first. So this is Jenna Deere. She's a 4th grade teacher. And she is just going to share a tiny bit about how the behavior interventionist has supported her this year. Hopefully. Here she is. There,
Part 2.
yeah, there is a part 2. Yeah. And then Mrs. Gibbs shared some words too. She didn't want to be on the video. So here's what she shared. Mrs. Slayton has been in my resource classroom a lot to help support not only teachers, but the students. She is someone I know I can always count on to help me with new ideas to help students with their behaviors. I know that when I try the strategy we talk about, if it's not successful, she will be there to help me come up with something new. Mrs. Slayton responds quickly when available. When Mrs. Slayton is called to the room for behavior, she helps not only the student who is having a behavior, but she assesses the situation and executes a plan so learning can continue for others with minimal disruptions. I hope to continue getting support from Mrs. Slayton with behaviors. She is a fantastic team player and truly so helpful in our resource classroom. Not only does she help while the behavior is occurring, she helps before, after, and many times outside of her contracted hours. She is always thinking of ways to help the staff and students have the best days possible. Just having her support and help coming up with ways to better help all students is a huge need in our building. So Mrs. Gibbs is a special ed teacher. She's our primary special ed teacher. So I've seen great success and I'm excited to see where we go in the next year.
So I know we've received some summary data or something like that. We got some today, but we've also gotten it, I think, a couple months back at the end of the school year. But is that something that you mentioned that she was providing data to the staff?
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that we could also have access to just to,
Yeah, absolutely.
and if that can be put on our shared drive or whatever, so that we can periodically, even if it's, once a semester or
Yeah.
whatever, go through that.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
information.
We can do that. Thank you.
I have a few things on this.
Yeah.
I think this is one of the most important discussions we can have. Maintaining and handling discipline should attract and retain families with values consistent with ours, and that's kind of where the board comes in, is making sure we're doing that. I know we haven't made any changes through the handbooks and policies. Probably the entire time I've been on the board, they've been consistent. I think we have really good handbooks, and if you look, they're based on Indiana code, so there's not much there we can change. But students are expected to conduct themselves in such a way as to reflect only credit to themselves, their parents, and to North Elementary. Students should obey and follow a reasonable order or directive of any North Elementary staff member. And do you feel that both disruptive and non-disruptive students receive a appropriate education as a result of our efforts right now?
Yeah, I do. I think that for me, it was kind of a slow roll in August and September, like getting to know the staff, getting to know the kiddos, creating, figuring out the routines and what had been put in place. Looking back from the beginning of the school year to the end of the school year, I do. I think that we've made some great gains. Alicia's been great on creating ways for staff to communicate quickly without disrupting the class so we can intervene. And I think that the second half of the school year was a lot smoother than the beginning.
I know Mrs. Deere on her video, she had mentioned that behavior is detrimental to the education of others, that was kind of a line, it seems like, for
Mhm.
her. So that's kind of a line that's
Yeah.
consistent, I guess, throughout. I know when this position was created, we said we'd revisit it, and so thank you for
Yeah,
the
for sure.
presentation today. What are some alternatives to this position if we didn't have it, that we can do instead?
What do you mean?
Well, I know in the past, when this was created, a behavior classroom was mentioned as a possibility. Adding additional staff, various places.
Mhm.
What's your thoughts on that?
I love that Alicia is available to push into the classroom. We want kids to be in the classroom. That's where you teach. That's where they get the most exposure. And for the most part, they want to be in there. So having her available to push in instead of pulling the kid out sometimes is
Well, the goal
good.
would be the same.
Yes.
for you, though, right?
Yeah. So I don't know. I think we would have to think about what that looks like. And is it a long term? Is it a short term?
I did some checking today after
Yeah.
we talked, and I think there's a difference between having a classroom or a school for alternative ed and a program for alternative programming. Okay, choosing words here. Michelle and I talked today, and Dr. Wall and I talked today, and so we're gonna do a little bit more homework on if a child does not have an IEP, what are other options we can do for this? If a child does have an IEP and the case conference committee would determine that an alternative placement is appropriate, then that would be something we look into at that time. And sometimes that is just going into the resource room more time during the day. Sometimes that could actually then look like a different placement outside the gen ed classroom.
I know a lot of times in education, these things move quite slowly.
They do.
And I think kind of going back to her point of making sure it's not a detriment to the rest of the class, is there any way of speeding things up?
Well, it's like due process, right? And the process is made to be slow to make sure that some kids, we can get things on track earlier. Then
But inside of that slow process, are there things we can do then to make sure that it's not as big of an issue to the rest of the class?
I think a lot of times it's a big conversation. This isn't a.
Well, that kind of leads me to my next point, so we can stop there. I know we had talked about possibly having a work session, talking about expectations and behavior, and bringing all the administration in with the board to basically let you know we have your back on these things, and that we want to keep our expectations high, and just that we are all on the same page, and whatever you need to do to make this happen, that we're here to help. So we possibly talked about late July,
Right.
trying to organize something along those lines. No votes taken, just a casual meeting. We can all bounce ideas off of each other, and that would help us know more of what you need in your buildings as well. And I know when we created this position, we had discussed there's pretty significant cost involved with it. I don't know if you had a chance to look at the hourly.
I think that the yearly cost on the position is 24.
And that's a half-time position.
Correct.
So I would be interested in looking at what else we could do with dollars like that, if there are better use of our resources. I mean, $24,000 is a lot if you're talking about 12 kids. So what else could we do with that could have a better effect on the
But
entire
she
school?
doesn't only support those 12 kids. I mean, there are kindergarten behaviors or preschool behaviors that happen every day that just need a quick, push in. So she's usually the first one. If she's not available, then they'll call me. So she's whack-a-mole throughout the building all day. So yeah, it could be anything, or it could just be an upset kiddo, that came in and had a bad morning at home. She supports them too. So it's not just those 12 kids. She's busy.
I guess something we probably don't understand is what qualifications does she have outside of our regular counselors to do this?
She is a licensed clinical social worker. So that is a 4-year degree plus a master's.
Okay. And that's different than our Youth First social workers?
No.
Not necessarily.
No.
The position, there are people who are trained in ABA therapy. What's the other acronym?
BCA, behavioral.
BCAB.
I did see that there was something specific for that.
BCABs are
Yeah.
behavior
Behavior
technicians.
She doesn't have that.
No.
then.
Right.
When we created the position, we had listed out those possibilities of types of licensures or degrees, but
And these positions, I mean, this is a fairly new job, position or role. And those people are few supply. They get picked up pretty quick, once they get out of college. Some school corporations are actually paying people to go and get these degrees and work with them, but
Well, I will save the rest of what I have then if we can.
Okay.
so is North Elementary, does South Terrace have one?
no, we're using Title I funds at North Elementary. It's a Title I school, so Title I funds are being used for this position.
I could piggyback on a lot of what Vince says, but if we have a working session, it's probably the best spot for it. I've had teachers come out and say that they're really happy, but then I've also had an equal number, if not more, come out and say, we don't call because of some of the behaviors, because we feel like they're rewarded instead of taken care of. So then they're bothered by that. So then I don't know how that is reflected in the data either, just because there might be some kids that are not being put in the data because the teachers don't even call on them.
Okay.
But I don't know. I think that's all working session stuff that we go over.
Thank you. All right, so we are on to Dr. Walden.
All right, we have more Neola policies. We're almost done. We're almost through this whole packet. So tonight we have, for second read, the program and property books. I didn't receive any comments or suggestions for changes, so that would go to what we call second read. And if you are, feel that you're ready, then we'll go to a motion for approval for this.
Okay, we'll go ahead and look for a motion to approve them.
I'll make a motion that we approve the property and program books of the new policy.
1 second.
I'll second.
Any discussion on those?
I'll second Jennifer's earlier comment about ease of read on these was much more so than the previous.
Right.
So,
lighter.
None of them are fun reads.
no,
No.
no.
And I did not put it in the comments, but I actually had 2 questions about 2221, the mandatory instruction, and one was morals instruction. And it's kind of a question. Is it like, are we saying, okay, we're gonna teach you morals today? Or does it just come along with teaching because you're teaching morals when you're teaching, right? I mean, it's not like, right.
Can I read it and get back to you on that?
Yes, and then the other one was ethnic studies as an elective in the high school. I just want to know what that is exactly.
Do you remember the number on that one?
It's Y. 2221 Y.
Oh, 2221. They're both 2221.
Yes,
And that's why. Got it.
yeah, and the
Okay.
morals instruction, I don't remember what letter it was.
Okay, I'll find it and
And then in the one above that, 2220, I so appreciated punctual, present, complete assignments on time. I was like, yay! That's just like, yes, that's what we want
Mhm.
every time. Do we get it? No, but that's what we want.
perfect. Yeah, I'll get you.
Thank you.
So do we want to table this
Until next time,
until next time and not approve it?
I think that's a good idea.
You can pull just that.
Just
Just those two?
It's just the one 2221 policy.
Yes, the mandatory instruction policy.
Yeah.
So
You
I
can
guess
pull
I'll
that one out.
amend
I'll amend my motion to exclude those 2 policies,
Just one policy.
or that one policy.
One
Yeah,
policy,
2221.
Yeah, and then that will come for a second read next month. That one, once we get answers.
Yes. What's that number again?
2221.
I'm doing okay, it's just not the most beautiful.
So the other comment I guess I had was on the attendance policy. The definition of attendance, I had to read like 10 times.
Okay, we're not on that one yet.
Okay.
We're not approving that one yet.
So we need to go
I'll hold
ahead and have a vote on this one. minus 2221. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. That carries 4-0. Okay,
Okay, then at your first read, this month is your operations book and relations book. And then, we have a revised, 5200 policy on student attendance. And this revision, one has been updated quite a bit, with the 2024 legislation. So you saw lots of changes within this policy, and most of that is due to laws that were just passed. But there's one specific part of it, it's, if you have it, and I put some on your table today in case you didn't have it printed. It's on the third page under the board considers the following as reasons for excused absences. Our principals are asking that we remove the illness verified by a note from the parent or a call from the parent. That they would like to have excused absences only those that are verified by a professional note. That would include a doctor's note or court note or something that would be verified by the.
So today we wait 3 days, right, and then require a doctor's note,
Yes.
and
Do you think it's gonna promote people to send their kids to school sick? Because it's really frustrating. I'm not gonna take my kid to the doctor every time they got a fever or they have a.
yes,
So one thing to think through is the difference between an unexcused absence and an excused absence, right? And I think that if we go this route, we would need to make sure we're communicating very effectively what that means. Because I think a lot of parents in general think that unexcused means really bad and excused is better, right? And so would we need to obviously create lots of communication that if your student isn't at school today because they have a fever and you don't take them to the doctor, you should still call them in. It's just not an excused absence. It's an unexcused absence.
so,
And what does that mean as far as like consequences and truancy, and have conversation about handbooks and that?
so what does that mean for me?
not much unless you have high school students, right?
Can I
I
jump
brought
in?
Shannon tonight to help.
Just read it on the top.
Yes, come on.
So right now, yes, at the high school, there are a lot more things that are put in place. And Mr. Fisher and all of us have talked about how some language is gonna have to change. Citizenship, things like that, the final exemptions and things. Language is gonna have to change in those building policies to jive with this, to where there isn't a significant difference really for those eligibilities. Now, whenever with our current policy, we have, basically 10 unexcused absences could result in conversations with court, conversations with our letters that go out throughout, like at 5 days, 5 absences, 8 absences. They explain that procedure as far as pre-court talks and things. But right now we've got kids that have 35 plus excused absences.
Elementary kids?
Oh, yes.
They're just not coming to school
They're just not coming to school.
and their parents are okay with that.
They're calling them in.
Okay.
That is
So-
where this conversation has come from. Yes.
Yeah. So I've got the same concern that Lindsay has about parents or kids deciding that they're just coming into school. They are sick
Mhm.
and
Take some
spreading things.
Tylenol and ibuprofen
Right.
and send them.
And then by lunchtime, they're off the Tylenol and
Right.
back to being sick, and they're contagious the entire time.
Right. Well,
So is there something else we could look at as far as putting because if the kid's called in 35 times within the school year,
mhm.
there's some issue there.
There are interventions that need to be put in place whenever
Right.
that's the situation. There are also going to be situations when that's appropriate. If a child has a major surgery or
But they
you
don't
know-
have a doctor's.
They would,
I mean,
there would
that
be
would be
documentation in situations like that, yes. Right, but
I'm just thinking that this somewhat punishes the good high school student that wants to show up and wants to be in class, but is sick.
right,
I
And
think it's a communication thing.
I think
Just
it,
like
I
Michelle
think you're
said.
right.
If you know, most, I shouldn't say this, but most families are gonna keep a kid home if he's throwing up or has a fever. And if they choose not to go to the doctor, it's just, it's an absence regardless of whether it's excused or unexcused. And I think changing the high school handbook will solve some of those problems.
But is making this change gonna make any difference to these parents that are calling the kid in 35 times?
Well, what would
Well,
happen is starts that process, it would then trigger that process of receiving maybe a 3-day letter, a 5-day letter, a 7-day letter,
Instead of
which
the
instead
10,
of they
so
don't, they're not getting that letter at all right now because all of the absences are
They're
excused.
excused, right.
So we're not triggering any sort of truancy conversation. And when you look at like our state data for just this last year that we just finished, 76% of our students met the 94% attendance rule. So almost 24% of our population did not attend school 94% of the year. So, I mean, that's if you're not at school,
Is that same for elementary? versus
that's the whole,
Like, is it worse for?
I have that breakdown, and I can share this data with you if you'd like. North Elementary had 27% not meet. South Terrace had 19% not meet that 94%. And the junior high was a little higher at 30, and then the high school at 23.
That's interesting.
So, and that's excused and unexcused. The only, I mean, that's state data. If you're just not at school, it doesn't count. The thing that, like, exempt reasons, so like state fair, field trips, you know, those kinds of things are considered
It's a
exempt.
family
Yeah,
vacation.
death and
It is.
family.
It would be unexcused, yeah.
Yeah.
But just like Jennifer said, we have to change that mindset or help our families understand that, you know, it's okay to have 3 unexcused absences in a school year because you didn't take your kiddo to the doctor because, you know, right. And because I'm with you, 100%.
It's the same thing my other kid had.
Right,
My other kid had.
exactly.
Like, I'm not gonna.
Exactly. And yeah, so
Or I'm gonna write my own.
so it's right. So it's okay.
Everybody's gonna be calling me.
We just need them to know it's okay, you know, to have an unexcused absence here or there. It's not okay to have more than 10 because 10 is significant. That's an excessive absence. Right.
And the thing that our administrators are still gonna have the leeway to,
Absolutely.
we have this letter, we know what's going on here. You know, we can work with this as opposed to somebody who, you know, doubles up that number or gets to 30 some absences.
Right.
And when they're calling in, it just ties their hand. But to the point, if the kids aren't in the seat, even if they're, you know, straight A student, they're still gonna be missing conversations with their peers, with their teacher, work in the classroom.
I mean, I know there are parents that take their kids out of school because this is when they could fit their vacation in. And those are still prearranged absences, but they would be unexcused.
Yes.
And in that situation, the principal and the counselors and the secretaries at school would all know, oh yeah, they're not at school because,
And it was prearranged.
and it was prearranged.
Right.
Is this gonna be different for, not that it should be, but if you have straight A students that are, maybe they really were sick 10 days versus kids that maybe have awful grades and miss 20 days, I don't know.
It shouldn't be, and the reason to change that excused to unexcused is that then it triggers our processes, right? It triggers those letters and the conversations and the meetings and to be able to have the story behind why we're not coming to school.
And it also helps us be able to use our resources. Like if the story behind not coming to school is that the car isn't working and and they're out of district or they're, whatever, not getting to school. I'm just making up stuff at this point, but like what's the story rather than maybe just, okay, they're not coming to school again today, allows us to have that better connection.
We also want to put in consistent protocols for at this number of days missed a phone call. The counselor or principal or whoever is designated in the building, is making a phone call. And then at this number of days, they're coming in for a meeting with the counselor and the parents so that we can explain everything.
Where does that part of it fall in? Is that handbook or is that part of the policy?
It won't be part of the policy. The policy is really, really general.
Yeah.
Yeah, the policy is just exactly what, very general. Those are just going to be protocols that we put in place. I don't know that it would necessarily go in the student handbook because it's really what we're doing. But it would be, but we want, each building it may look each intervention may look different, but in each building, because, in an elementary school, it's not a student issue. It's a parent and family issue. And I mean, it's less than at the high school, but it's still a parent issue too.
But I'm glad you said that because for the kids who drop out of school and don't graduate, for the kids who don't earn the credits enough because there's actually going to be a pathway that kids can get their diploma, but they still have to have great attendance, right? And so if we start building these patterns in elementary schools, it's just going to continue. So we feel like the expectation has to start or be K-12, not just, high school or junior high school. Because truly, whenever, they're going to build those patterns, those habits early.
I think it kind of goes back to making sure our policies meet our standards of expectations, that we want to build the culture, that we want. We want kids here. Obviously, we understand when the things happen. We don't make it to work every day either. Things happen, but we want to build that culture of expectation.
Yeah, and like I've already said, my only concern is that we don't punish the kids that are trying to get in, and that we communicate that and make sure there are no repercussions for not coming to school for 2 days because they actually are sick,
Right, and we don't want there to be any other repercussions than what are already in place.
Right.
For that.
They still gotta go to prom, they still gotta go
Right,
to.
that falls into that citizenship that, we, whenever the administrators and I talked about it, that was one thing that we brought up, and Mr. Fisher brought it up immediately of, yes, we want to do this, but our language is gonna have to change in those building policies because.
Is that something that can all be done at once? Because the handbooks will have to be amended at this point.
Right, and we talked about that.
So could we do that at the same time that we approve this one, just so it's a package deal?
Would you like those amendments next month with the second read?
I mean, if they can be done by then, or if we need to hold this off for a
I think
while.
they could. Because they want to have the handbook amended prior to school.
Yeah, you'll just have to talk to them
Right.
about where they are this summer and getting it by that July meeting. But no, they want, absolutely having it for the beginning of the year, they knew, but yeah, I think so.
And that's why we want to bring this to you tonight.
We wanted to make sure that this was something overall that we were gonna pursue before we started amending.
Well, it just feels kind of funny, like you're maybe overstepping the parents, and that always worries me because parents are in control of their kids, and
Mhm.
so I think that would make me feel much better if we saw it all as a package deal.
Fair.
But I think overall, this is a good direction to go in, coming from the classroom. I mean, and when a kid is not in the seat, it's like 10 times the work to get them back to where they're supposed to be.
Mhm.
So I think that's a good way to go.
Thanks. Mr. Slade.
All right, we are looking at recommending OPOP for our food service management company for the next year. As the dismissed with us today, and we went down and looked through the bids. OPOP came up on top by roughly 9 points. We feel a lot of the things were pretty consistent. Our costs look to be like they're going to be a little less with OPOP. And then we've had Aramark for 5+ years. Just feel like we're at a point where when we think about our experience with them, we just want to experience something else and see what else is out there. We also looked at being self-service through this direction, but at this point in time, we think we're still at a part or a point where OPOP can work with us, understand that we have a food service manager here on site that is very competent, knows what she's doing, and can handle the day-to-day transactions. So part of the cost being lower is we won't have a food service management company on site daily like we currently do. That was not heard initially from Aramark, and it wasn't until later conversations that didn't feel like they were listening. They weren't hearing us, and so we just felt like OPOP did hear us.
Thank you all for looking at the 500+ pages. It was a bit excessive, it seemed like.
The state requires.
The state was actually, I think, helpful through this process.
Yeah.
Very easy to talk to.
She was.
Wanted to be a part of it when we opened up the bids, and Stacy called in multiple times, asking questions, and so, while excessive maybe, but they were actually helpful as well.
Truthfully, I think the state portion is very small in those binders. It's all of the
Fluff.
Marketing. Yeah.
marketing, thank you. Marketing.
All right, so looking for a motion to approve OPOP.
I'll make a motion to approve OPA as our new food service.
Second,
One second.
any more discussion on this?
I will say I did actually call some of the schools, or I did one that is using OPA right now, and spoke to the treasurer, and she said the kids are very happy with it. They like the food. Overall, the experience has been decent with them.
Good to know.
I'll add on to that then. Dr. Wall and I were at a different meeting, and just out of the blue, the conversation came up from some companies, some school corporations that had made the switch, and they had been very happy with their change.
And this is a 1-year,
That part wasn't set.
If I understand it correctly, the way it is we have to sign a contract every year with them, just like we did.
Okay.
But we can choose within those 5 years not to. I believe that is the way it can be.
that's how I read it, but I wasn't
Yeah.
sure.
You can stay with them for 5 years if you want, just
Without-
redoing it.
Without
Each
going through
year.
the whole
But
process.
you could go to RFP any year.
Yes.
In that 5 years if you wanted to.
And
So
after
the
5
same as
years,
what we
you
did.
have to go back and get bids again.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Thanks again.
All right, next we're going to look at some grants that have been provided to us by the Community Foundation. A $4,500 grant was used for a trailer mixer, the heavy highway construction curriculum. Thanks, Stacy. $297 to be used for a compact grill driver set for the welding and metal fabrication class. $598 for a punch and die set for the welding and metal fabrication class, and a $3,200 donation or grant to be used for 8 Briggs and Stratton motors for the agricultural curriculum.
Looking for a motion to approve the grants.
I'll make a motion to approve the grants. And I'll second that.
Any discussion on these?
I guess, like to thank, I know Mr. Wallace, probably Mrs. Bender, worked on some of these as well to get these to come to us, so appreciate their work to get that. And I think these were all grants though, when we did that present. Okay. This wasn't a corporate donation, right?
No, this was not.
All in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0.
All right, we present to you the board, presenting to the board for consideration our 2025 budget calendar with dates adjusted.
Was the one
And
day,
it was just repeated, right, Amy?
is the one day Columbus Day, are we in school? I know it
October
usually,
14th.
it
We
usually
usually
falls
is
like
on-
that.
You're right.
No,
No, we're in session.
We're in school.
We are, okay.
Most schools
So
not in
I think
session
that's the
that
week
day.
Fall
after
break
our
is the
fall
week
break.
before then.
Perfect.
So is Monday the 14th or is Monday the 15th?
Monday is the 14th.
Right. The Tuesday's one.
Okay, it should say Tuesday.
At the bottom of that.
Oh, yep.
Looking for a motion to approve the budget calendar with the amendment of the 15th being Tuesday.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget calendar.
Second,
I'll second that.
any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Mr. Slagle, we're looking at bonds. Do we need to open?
Yes, at this time, we need to go ahead and have a public hearing on a proposed project. And so you need to open that up.
Okay, I'll open the hearing at 7:26.
All right. So we are looking at a bond process. This will be renovating some space or creating some new space for storage and for maintenance work, because that area and 3 other portions of our high school then will be renovated for career tech or CTE experiences for our students, which at this point in time, we are handling 3 or 4 pathways for diplomas through. Also, then we'll be looking at our junior high for science classroom renovations. Hafer's been out and walked through that with us 2 weeks ago. Then we have a host of other projects, potential that, based on the amount of income that comes in from the bonds, from sewer projects to some kitchen renovations to some classroom renovations. There'll be a second public hearing at our July meeting, and the board will consider the preliminary determination resolution included in our packet. Again, kind of talked about high levels here about the projects going on. And again, a lot of that's just going to be around our CTE for the high school. This is just the first step in our authorization process. There'll be several actions that the board will consider over the next several months with public hearings. I'm going through and just reading through everything our lawyer told us here, so I'll make sure you got everything on there. There are handouts available there for the public here with statutory information in there. And then at this time, you can ask for public comment.
Okay. Does anyone have any comment on this? I would say just because all of these things are detailed in this does not mean we are doing every project on the list. It just gives us the opportunity to choose
Correct.
from within.
We have our priorities, and then if available funds are there, then we can prioritize from there.
This time then, we need a motion to approve this bond resolution.
I'll make a motion that we approve the bond resolution.
Second,
I'll second it.
any further discussion on this?
We'll just need to have your signatures here when we're done.
All in favor, say aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. And at this time, we will close the bond hearing. And we are on to personnel.
All right, so we have some professional leaves coming up. One for me to go to a joint school budget and finance seminar. That's going to be up in Indianapolis on Wednesday. Put the 11th and 12th. I'll probably just end up going up Wednesday morning and coming back. And then Ms. McMahon is going to Bunfield, Louisville for SCM training. And the SCM part is just, are you familiar with that? That's what, if a student were to present themselves in a manner that's hurtful to themselves or others, it's a way to make sure that we can work with the child and keep them safe from harm. It's also, ideally, it's to help the adult stay safe as well in that crisis
The
situation.
state requires some form of an accredited protocol to be used for restraints and seclusions.
Looking for a motion to approve the professional leave request.
I move to approve the professional leave request. I'll second.
Motion second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Anything under reports?
No, sir. Sorry, I skipped that part, but I don't have anything at this time. Reports, but any good news, we have a lot of good news going on.
Mhm.
We have our softball team made semi-state, fell a little short. But you know, the rain was fun to watch a game in the rain. Baseball team, same, fell a little bit short up in Plainfield this past Saturday. But what great representation from both teams for us.
All right.
If you haven't noticed the artwork in the hallway with Miss Rankin retiring,
Yeah.
maybe there was a little levity there with some
I had to
Facebook. Well, what you missed is the first one when you come down the left, she
Uh-huh.
didn't recognize that person.
No,
She didn't.
She
She
just-
looked at, she goes, I think I know that person.
I didn't recognize it.
So the next regular meeting will be Monday, July 8th. And this time looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second.
And we are adjourned.
I have a question on OPA. Will they be starting July 1st or do they come in right before school starts?
I actually have, I will probably be in contact with them tomorrow and start getting timelines set up.
Okay, so you'll be working on it now.
The live stream? Live stream is up there.